Got the best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Get your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, recruit. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another Geeks Vegas Lines DFS and Betting Lines Breakdown, where we go through the entire NFL Week 6 main slate from a daily fantasy and betting angles point of view. We're going to look at all the games. We're going to get on top of which ones we can target, and we're going to do all that great stuff. It is Wednesday, middle of the week, so we've got a lot of information in front of us. As always, we are presented by DFS Army. Of course, you go there to crush daily fantasy sports. Sign up as VIP, promo code GEEK, 20% off. In addition, we are sponsored by a great prop betting company called No House Advantage. You guys got to check this out. They can play props for cash. They're set up in tournament style, GPP style games where you're going to pick from a number of different props. You can rank them from 1 to 5, with your favorite prop being a ranking of 5. And we happen to have an awesome prop betting tool at DFS Army called the Prop Finder. You got to check this out. Actually, I will bring it on screen. It super helps with betting on props, and of course, betting on props through No House Advantage tournaments. So make sure you check that out as well. You can see that. Hey, let me share my screen here for those of you who are watching. And if you go to the DFS Army site, there is the Prop Finder tool, which you can click on right in the top bar, and that is absolutely accessible for everyone. It's one of the greatest tools I've ever seen for betting props and for understanding where props should be versus where they are. That's how you use it on a site like No House Advantage. Joining me, as always, a daily fantasy superstar, but also a well-known and renowned sports bettor who heads up our NFL content team over at Sports Bet Army and has just been crushing tennis bets for some reason. I didn't know you were into tennis, bro, but seems like you're fucking killing it. That's John Statsational Alessia. What's up, John?
What's going on, man? We're getting deep into the season now, man. Starting to be able to trust some of these statistics.
We are, and what we were just talking about off air, and what I wanted to mention was one of the great tools that we have over at DFS Army is our Power Rankings tool provided by John as well. And this is really just a statistical look with, I'm going to call it a leveling out of the team biases. That's the best way I'm going to put it, at which teams are expected to score more points, above average, score less points above average offensively, defensively, prevent scoring above or below average. So it's leveled off for the team competition. And one of the greatest tools we have, because the first thing I look at every week is I try to look at this offense passing versus minus defensive passing ratio to understand essentially which teams are the ones we want to target offensively. So, John, what are the two things we're looking for in looking for, like, essentially defenses against or defenses to target with opposing offenses, right? What are the two things? We want, number one, teams that score a lot, right? So we want a good offensive team because they score a lot. Number two, we want teams that are bad on defense. So that's what leads to high-scoring games. Is that essentially what we're trying to measure here, John?
It's pretty simple. I mean, that's pretty much it. On that power rankings, we're talking about that last column there, which is offensive passing minus defensive passing. That's just going to give you, well, first the columns, each one, the offensive passing column, defensive passing, same with the rushing, is going to show you above or below the average of the teams that they played, what that team has done. So if we're talking about offensive passing, you take Kansas City at the 39.05 there. That's a plus number. They've basically averaged they've averaged over 39 yards per game over what defenses that they've played have given up, essentially. So as we know, Kansas City is a pretty good offensive passing team. And then when you're looking at the defensive side, a green number or the higher number, positive number, is going to be a plus. So that's a team that actually holds down their opponents below the
Team
average.
to avoid,
Yeah,
right?
so we want to avoid typically these teams that have these, when we're talking about the passing game, teams that have a high number on that defensive passing side and a low number, of course, on the offensive passing side. And then that last column, what it's going to do is for each team, it's just talent. It's just adding those two things up. So the higher the number, the better typically for a game stack. So there's maybe some surprises in here and some that we kind of knew. But what I've done now is I've taken off last year's statistics. They're not tied to this anymore. So we're seeing more of what's happened this year. So last year, I mean, we could go right to Buffalo right now, which Buffalo we've kind of labeled as a really good defense, strong defense. They were a team last year where maybe running the ball with the quarterback a little bit, not a whole lot of passing. Defense really clamped down on opposing passers. So far, that's not been the case this year. And it wasn't the case before last night's game either.
Bro, I love the surprises on the list. Number one, I've been waiting. So, guys, those of you watching at home, up until this week, we've had a lot of statistics in this from last season. So it wasn't as predictive for me as I like it to be. So I've been waiting for like week 6 to kind of switch over for all of our stuff this year only because there are surprises here. Buffalo's a great call. Who would have thought that Buffalo is a team to target with offensive against? Last year, that was not the case. There are some other ones that stand out. I think the biggest, I don't know if it's the biggest shocker, but one of the best teams to target against has been the Jaguars.
Well, that's not just target against. So that's the combined. So they've been really good in game total game stacks. So not just the team they're playing, but they themselves. So yeah, Jacksonville's pretty high up there.
These are games we want exposure to. Anytime a team is playing against Jacksonville, we want to get both sides of that game because Jacksonville has apparently been scoring and they give up a lot of points. Atlanta is an obvious one, and they stand out, of course. So we already kind of knew that. But, I mean, Dallas, is spectacular team to target against. I mean, we're going to change all of that with the unfortunate injury to Dak. But, I don't know that they drop off all that much with Dalton. I think they're going to be just fine. Chargers are a shocker for me, John. Mm-hmm. Shocker. This is a team that was built on slow offense. I love the Eber era. It's so nice because everything's changed. But they were built on playing slow, pounding the football, taking the full 30-second, 40-second clock, draining it down. And now, look, this is a team that's been scoring and getting scored against on the Eber era. It's a whole new world. And we don't have to be scared of taking teams against the Chargers, John.
No, they're right in the middle now. You talk about pace of play. Yeah, that was their old kind of style, which is, like you said, let's run clock, let's run the ball.
Rivers era, man.
I was just about to say it's pretty close to what Indianapolis is right now.
Yeah.
But now they're right there. They're 14th in the league in pace, so they're right in the middle on both sides. They're like 13th on defense, 14th on offense. So this is a team that's in the middle and probably trending towards even quicker pace now that we've got the Herbert era beginning.
The Eber era. Now, two more. I'm going to make Eber a thing. I'm going to force.
Yeah, well, you make me say it, and then
yes, I love it. I'm going to torture everyone. All right, there are two more teams that stood out just a little bit. Raiders, not a team in my mind that I said, I need to target both sides of these games, but they have just been really, really good in terms of producing fantasy points. And also, I think maybe this might be the biggest surprise of them all is Cleveland. Cleveland is just not the team that I think of as like, I want to get involved with whatever game they're in that week. But here they are. They're giving up. Everything's above average with them. Fantasy scoring has been above average, both for them and for their opponents. So really fascinating. I love that we moved to this season exclusively. Let me find Tampa neutral. So when you're using this tool, guys, DFS Army VIPs who have access to this, when you're using this tool, it's just really important. We have biases in our minds, and this is going to hopefully remove some of that bias from your head about which teams produce great outcomes. And I'm going to give you a shocker to the other side, John. I think a lot of people think, oh, teams playing the Jets. Jets are fucking scrubs. Let's target the offense against them. But the reality has been that playing against the Jets has not produced above average offensive fantasy performances. Now, why that happens, we can sit here and have a conversation about it. But we don't have to. Another thing is Washington. Washington. You know, the Giants. We think, oh, the Giants are a scrub. Let's take whoever's facing them this week. They have not produced above average fantasy outcomes for the entirety of the game, or for really the offenses, but definitely for the entirety of the game. So it's just important to note these things, because we see Jets, we see Giants, we see these scrub teams. We're like, all right, who's playing them? Let's get them. But that's not been the case. Another one here that's been a little bit surprising, John, and I actually want you to explain why this is the case, is how come Detroit has got a negative number? I mean, Detroit, what's going on here, man? They're in my mind, I want to play the team who plays against Detroit every week. That was the plan last season, and now they're getting a negative number here. They're not a team that we should be targeting necessarily, or could this just be a little bit of noise? Like, what's going on here, John?
It could be. I'm gonna have to look at each individual game. It's really more on the defensive side, but who have they played here? Quickly, I got to think off the top of my head, but
we could take a quick look at Lions' opponents. I don't think they've been good, but some of this should be smoothed out for that. You know what I'm saying? Let me bring it up real quick, but some of that should be smoothed out, you would think. They played Chicago probably. I don't actually remember. You know what? It's
they did play Chicago week 1. They played Arizona.
You would have thought, yeah. I mean, those are teams that, especially Arizona. Let's see who else we've got with Detroit.
So yeah, you're going to get the with the Chicago game, you're getting a Trubisky game in there. So that's going to weigh it down just a little bit.
A Packers game. I mean, Arizona, New Orleans. These offenses have been good, and
which is why So these good offenses, they've just basically held pretty good offenses below what they've done. I mean, we haven't really seen that I could think of anyone against Detroit. I can't think of anyone who's had a monster game here against Detroit so far.
I think that Aaron Jones had a pretty good game.
I'm talking
Detroit.
about from the just from the pass from the
from the passing side, maybe not. It's been a little more running. Arizona only scored 26. I believe the Saints also had 2 Le'Veon Bell touchdowns.
That's right.
No, 2 Lats Murray touchdowns.
That's
so it's
right.
been running backs that have been smashing them, not the passing game.
Yeah, that's right. They played the Saints and they had that big they had a big lead that they gave up against the Saints. So yeah, it's been surprisingly they've been pretty good against the. It's not a number that I would necessarily be totally afraid of.
No, it's not a scary number. It's just when I see Detroit, I think, oh wow, this should be a real big positive number, and it hasn't. But I think that you're right. This is a passing statistic, and it's just been they've been a little more attackable via the rush, which might show up here. Let's take a look at on the actual matchup page. Let's see when we get to the lines. And I wasn't planning on diving too deep into individual teams, but yeah, I mean, it looks like rushing yards for. So it looks like with Detroit, you want to. They've kind of been a little weaker versus running backs here, and they're giving up above average yardage to the running back position. And I think it's just been also a case with them of just a little vulture-y where running backs have just seemed to snag a lot of those scores against the Lions so far this season. But nonetheless, that's not really why. I don't want to dive too deep, but I wanted to more show the tool, explain how to use it, and hopefully this removes some of our inherent biases about the games and who to target, and it opens our eyes up to some other potential games that we might not have thought about beforehand. So let's get right into it, John. The format of the show. We're going to look at 4 specific games that are going to be our core 4 for the week, the 4 most exciting games from a fantasy and perspective. I'm going to take a look at the fantasy side of things, John will chime in with some betting angles as well and some thoughts on the daily fantasy side as well. So we'll go back and forth it. After we do our core 4 of games, we will jump in and do a quick hitter look at some of the rest of the games of the week. And one thing I wanted to note is there's only 10 games on the main slate, so it's going to be less than we've had recently. Fewer games than usual, John. Seems like the first big-time week of buys alongside some weird scheduling situations with the NFL has kind of created a pretty short week for games.
It is, but this is good. It's kind of I don't like too many games. I like having that 9 to 11 games is pretty nice to work with.
I have to prefer that as well. So there we go. Yeah, it looks like we got 3 night games here. So we got an extra game pushed into sort of the 10-18, 10-19, 10-22. Oh no, I do think though the Bills game was pushed off. Well, we'll have to see what happens. But anyway,
10-22 is
that's the Thursday.
Next week's
yeah,
Thursday,
no, I'm trying to think what happened with the Bills game. They played last night, and that game's going to be pushed to when? Is that's not? Did they push that game to also prime time?
No, the Bills. Did they move? Yes, they moved that to Monday night. That was Bills Kansas City, right?
Oh, okay. So that's what I'm missing here on screen. It hasn't been moved in. Yeah, because I'm like, I know there's a Bills game somewhere. So all right, that's Monday night as well. All right, let's get right into it. We will go with the core 4. All right, and for those of you, again, watching this on the video feed via YouTube, number 1, remember to like and subscribe. Always do that. Gotta like and subscribe to the channel. But what we are looking at here is the DFS Army live odds page, where you can get a look at all the odds for all the games. It's under every sport has a live odds page on our menu bar. So we're looking at all of the games of the week. We can see the game total and the spread, and we can also compare odds across multiple books in our state. I've got this set to New Jersey. So the first game, John, we're going to take a look at here is the Texans versus the Titans. This one has a 53-point consensus over-under, and the Titans are coming in as 3-point favorites. Now, John, I'm going to throw this over to you. Any betting angles here that you could see? Titans coming off the really big game. They look great against the Bills on Tuesday night. They're getting over the Rona. A.J. Brown is back. He looks spectacular. Tannehill doing his thing. Texans, kind of like a bad team right now, but they fired the coach, and they've looked better offensively. So does anything stand out here in terms of betting angles for this home game for the Titans?
Yeah, I think to most people they're going to look at this as a line that should be a little bit higher, or maybe even a lot higher, depending how you look at it. I would think most people probably looked at this game and figured it would be closer to 5 or 6 as opposed to 3, and this was pretty much 3.5 this morning, and now it's down to 3. I think if you looked at this maybe even 2-3 hours ago, I think all the books had it at 3.5 when I was looking at it. This is a game that sort of sets up. It's a sucker line. You'll hear me talk about the sucker lines all the time. This just screams to me sucker line, and especially since now the 3.5s are now showing as 3s on screen. So this is a game where Tennessee, on a nationally broadcast game last night, looked phenomenal against a team that everyone was hyping. You had Allen as the front runner for MVP, and Tennessee pretty much the game was fairly close, I guess, in the third quarter, but they were in control of this game the entire way. They wound up winning the game quite easily. So, yeah, this is from a betting standpoint. I think most people are going to be coming in. As a matter of fact, I know right now that most tickets are coming in on Tennessee. The public is going to be on Tennessee. The suckers will definitely be in on Tennessee. I think the sharper side of this game is going to be Houston.
Dude, if I know John Statsational Alessia, and I do, there will be a bet put out on the Texans for this game over at Sports Bet Army, where you tip your picks. I'm not gonna spoiler it, But if I know John, and I do, I would expect it. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I feel you. Whenever it looks kind of like so obvious, you almost have to go the other way because the betting public is wrong most of the time, and we want to be on the sharp side. So I love that piece of advice. From a daily fantasy perspective, I love that you're going to like the Houston side because one of the beautiful things about the Texans is they don't score via the run very often. David Johnson only has 2 touchdowns on the season. We're 5 games in, guys. No other running back is scoring for them, and this has been the history of the Texans, really. They don't score very often via the run, which is why Deshaun Watson has had such a great fantasy performing record and history, even though, especially like this season where he's down one of his elite weapons in the passing game, they still have enough to do it, and they've still been doing it as they need to, and Deshaun could run one in. So I love this game. This, I believe, is my favorite game from a fantasy perspective of the week, John. I love Deshaun Watson here. Brandon Cooks, bounce back week last week. We talked about it on the show. You always go back to the guy who gave you the dud, the 0 the week before in DFS, and wow, did it work. Brandon Cooks, 33 fantasy points.
That was one of the best stacks, and Cooks was in a good chunk, the majority of lineups that cashed, I believe, in the Millie. Cooks was in there. He might have been the highest wide receiver only because the 2 guys who went absolutely crazy nobody owned. So I think Cooks was the number 1 receiver owned in GPPs. So yeah, we talked about him. I mean, he disappointed me 2 weeks ago. I had him in some high stakes lineups, but. And that was a game we liked,
and you couldn't pull the trigger. But here's the thing: like I had him, so when it feels a little scary, we like the game. We talked up Brandon Cooks. I had him in my Deshaun Watson stacks because you needed that. It helped with the salary savings, it helped me get off of like Zacchaeus chalk, which didn't seem that great, more of a cash play. So I had it, and it would have been one of the best calls of the week if it wasn't for Chase Claypool coming in and foiling everything with his crazy 4-touchdown miracle performance after Deontay got hurt. But yeah, great stuff. Same thing. I mean, the Texans, you really don't have to mess with their running back situation at all. What do you think of David Johnson? Man, he don't look right to me.
Yeah, we're getting to that point now where I think you've got to get rid of the expectations that you had before the year, especially if you had high expectations before the year for a player. If we've got now 5 weeks, just about everyone's got 5 games under their belt now, and you see that the usage and how they're using that player is just not what we anticipated before the season. You've got to really jump off here. The David Johnson situation. I mean, I was fairly high on David Johnson. I thought that was a really good spot last week. For him, and it just hasn't panned out, and Houston's just been a place for years now where running backs have gone to die in fantasy. So this is it's not necessarily a week that I'm going to be high on Johnson, but of course on the Tennessee side we're always pretty high on their running side, and this is a pretty good game.
Well, I mean, what I was just going to say is, as much as Houston is a place where offensive running backs on their team go to die, it's a place where opposing running backs go to have a fiesta. They've been one of the worst run defenses in the National Football League this season, and this week they get a date with Derrick Henry, who just made Josh Norman his bitch on Monday night, on Tuesday, Wednesday night. I don't know what the fuck it was. Tuesday Night Football. Did you see that? So 2 touchdowns for Derrick Henry. Just another day for him. This is the spot against this against this Houston defense where we might see the 180-yard 2-touchdown performance, assuming that the game remains close throughout. And with the again, even though we think that Houston can cover the spread here and it's a sucker bet or whatever, I don't think that means that Houston is coming in here and blowing out the Titans to where they have to stop running the football. So you got to love Derrick Henry in this spot. It it's a unicorn on paper. You can't ask for a better situation at home against the worst rush defense, or one of the worst in the National Football League for Derrick Henry. Might not work, but you can't ask for a better situation. Now,
this
what do you do in those spots, John? I mean,
yeah,
this should be
is
through the roof here.
Absolutely. This is running back situations can be tricky. When we've had a few this year where we've had some maybe low cost guys who are really chalky. I like when you've got the expensive chalk guy, because I can plug in. I like in this situation here, when I look at the stats, I look at Houston. They're like, we could look at the raw numbers and the yardage, and you can look at my numbers there, and you see I think they rank maybe 4th or 5th worst defense against the run. Obviously, Tennessee is one of the top rushing offenses, and then sometimes I'll dig a little deeper into line play, offensive line play, just to see are the numbers, do the numbers match up what I'm seeing in other statistics. I mean, yeah, and Houston's like 10th or 11th in actual before they get yards per contact on rushes, meaning they're actually getting the first hit on the running back further down the field than 2/3 of the teams in the league, which is not good news. So if you're hitting, if you're giving Derrick Henry a little bit of head of steam, and he's getting into your second layer of defense, it can make for a huge day. So yeah, I mean, all signs point towards having Derrick Henry on that side of the game. Is it possible? Do we want to? Because we might like the Houston. I mean, I know we're going to like the Houston pass catchers in this game. You could possibly go with a Henry, Watson, and Fuller or Cook, or whichever side you want to go with in this. This is one of those situations I think you could do that.
Yeah, I absolutely see that as probably the most common stack and the most viable stack in the game. And then you could take a look also at AJ Brown, who is back and better than ever. Looks spectacular. Jonnu Smith. There's a lot of weapons on both sides of this game that are going to be exciting to play. And if it does play out as a high-scoring game, which it projects to do, I mean, the Tennessee side, one of the nice things is, like I said, they only really throw to a couple of the guys. They have a very tight offensive scheme. So, Henry, it's going to be A.J. Brown. All these other guys got the Rona anyway, so they probably won't play. I don't know how, Corey Davis and Adam Humphries, I don't really care how their Corona recovery is. I think if those guys come back, they hurt Jonnu Smith the most potentially in this game, but AJ Brown's going to be there as well. Houston side, they only throw to 2 guys. I mean, it's like a very tight offense, 2 or 3 with Fells if he's in, or Akins, the tight end, and then it's just Cooks and Fuller. I mean, they don't really do that much else. Cobb a little bit.
What's a little surprising too is just because you think of the way Tennessee plays, but they're one of the fastest paced teams right now this season. I don't think people might ever. They're playing at the fourth quickest pace this year, and Houston's right up there with them. So this is a game. That's why you're going to see a high total in this game. You've got weak. Again, Tennessee's defense not as strong as it was, or as we may think it, as we may think it to be, and with a quick pace in this game, that's why we're seeing the total over at 53.5. So, yeah, this and again, it's an oddity, but Henry's one of those backs where in a high scoring game, and we like these. We like the favorites. We like favorite running backs.
We want home favorite running backs. I mean,
we
it's
like
the
that.
unicorn. It's the unicorn. We can't ask for better. Sometimes the unicorn doesn't pay off, but it's the unicorn.
Gonna have a hard time thinking that Henry's not.
Yeah.
I mean, he might not be the high scorer on the week, but he'll be one of the top 3 scorers this week.
He should have
for running back, no doubt.
Yeah, he should have a good game. All right, let's go to core play number 2. Falcons at Vikings. All right, so John, this Falcons-Viking game comes in at a 54.5 point game total, with the Vikings set up as 3.5 point home favorites. Now, I'm going to tell you my sort of layman's public thought here, looking at the line, is, Vikings at home should be favored by more than 3.5 against the Falcons. The Falcons kind of suck. They did fire their coach. Let me tell you. All right, hold up. I got a fucking rant. I can't even remember his name right now. Oh, Dimitrov. I've been railing about Dimitrov ever since these guys were on the HBO show.
Hard Knocks.
Ever since these guys were on Hard Knocks. Dimitrov only wanted to talk about his hobbies that weren't football related, and that disgusts me. I want my GM to live and breathe football. I don't want him to be a Renaissance man. Okay? He's been a terrible fucking GM for this team because he doesn't care exclusively about football. You should live and breathe football if you're going to be the GM. I don't want to hear about your trips to Broadway, about your interest in fishing. I don't want to hear about any of that. And that's what Dimitrov. He had way too many other interests. Not a good GM at all. And he's hired terrible coaches for this. He's ruined. These guys have ruined. All right, this isn't relevant. This isn't relevant. These guys have ruined the Falcons, and they've abused the loyalty of Arthur Blank, who is one of the most incredible human beings, and they've abused it. Shame on you, Dimitrov. You should have harikari'd yourself a long time ago. You shouldn't have made a beautiful man, Arthur Blank, fire you. Sorry, I just shouldn't have. I have strong feelings about that. Shame. Worse coaching. I don't know who was worse, Quinn or the guy before him. All right. Let's talk about this game, though. So whenever a team fires the whole staff, usually they get a little jolt of electric, John. But man, I want to bet the Vikings here, 3.5 points. What the fuck?
Yeah, well, you and the rest of the world.
I feel like I'm a fish.
It's definitely a sucker game. The sucker games don't always lose. Sometimes I'm on the side of the sucker games. But this is the sucker line, the square line as we'll call it, or the square side here on this game is definitely going to be on the Vikings. I think the majority of the public is confused by this line. I'll say this to you all the time. If you're confused by the line, you're probably wrong.
Well, I hate this about sports betting, that the minute I feel like, oh man, I got it, you're telling me always do the opposite of that, which really kind of pisses me off.
It's not necessarily it's not always just do the opposite. It's just do the opposite on the obvious ones. If you're playing a pick'em pool, don't pick the opposite of what you think, because most of these games are really close. But when you see a line that just doesn't make any sense, go ahead and go against it in your office pick'em pool, and you'll probably do better than you normally would.
This one makes no sense to me. I thought the Vikings actually maybe turning things around defensively as well. They started off the season just absolutely horrific, one of the worst in the league, and so I'm even worried about using power ranking numbers to judge. But let's take a look at the power ranking numbers here, and what it's showing us is, it shows bad. It shows Atlanta, lots of passing yardage, probably more rushing yardage than I would have definitely thought Atlanta capable of, considering, they're rushing out Gurley, who admittedly looked pretty good last week and had a big game and whatever. In this game, though, the offense of Minnesota just projects really, really well across all of it. I love Alexander Mattison this week, and I have to say, guys, Alexander Mattison is Dalvin Cook. It's the same thing. Don't think that there's a drop-off here. There really isn't. And when I say that, I mean he's going to get all the touches in a high-powered offense that produces points to the running back. Give me a DFS angle on this, John. Madison is priced up like a stud. He did not come in. Neither side. They all waited. I feel like it's for the Madison deal. They all waited to find out that Dalvin Cook was out. Dalvin Cook is out, by the way, guys. So Alexander Mattison, I think they priced him up like a stud. So the question is the DFS public going to find it hard to pull the trigger on a backup thrust into a starting role that is priced as a stud starter in a perfect matchup, though? Or will they just play the shit out of him because, hey, Minnesota produces points to the running back, and now this is the only guy? They don't even have a Madison to vulture his touchdowns. But he is the vulture.
Yeah, you're going to see a very similar ownership to what Cook would have been here. I've actually heard some people this morning A little concerned with how many pass catches he's going. Is he going to get the same amount of targets in the passing game as Cook has got? I'm fairly confident he will.
I don't know what you're worried about that. Who are they going to throw to? Fucking Mike Boone? I mean,
exactly. That's what. And I, like I said, I actually heard that that concern today because he hasn't historically gotten as many targets in the past game. I just think if you watch the games, just watching him, he looks every bit as good as Cook does in that offense. And without
I also have to say, visually they're identical. It's actually kind of annoying.
Well, it is annoying because yes, when I'm looking for Cook in DFS, I generally because they both got like they got the dreads hanging out from underneath.
They're visually identical in their uniform. I'm just like, is that Cook scoring? Oh shit!
I know.
Vulture got it.
The hair's covering the name. I can never remember the numbers. Yeah, it screws me up all the time when I got multiple games going on with no volume. But yeah, in this instance, Madison's he'll be a popular play. He'll be just as popular as Cook would be in this instance. And I'm glad that they priced it correctly. I hate when it's mispriced. If he was down in that backup pricing range, I mean, it kind of ruins the slate for me.
Even FanDuel, who is not known for adjusting salaries really quick. Even they didn't move him to the correct amount, but they moved him up to a level where you can't just. It's not like an auto play. I want a lock button a player like this. What I would do if Madison was priced in the 5Ks on DraftKings or even low 6, but in the 5K level, if he's in the 6s, the low 6s, high 5s on FanDuel, that's a lock button. That's where I hit the lock button on the optimizer. I make my 150. John, you make your 450 or however many fucking lineups you make. And it's like this guy is in all of them right now. We can't necessarily play him in every single lineup that we make because he's priced like a real player. There are other good running backs that are salaried about the same. But I do love me some.
I'll say he's definitely, for me, he's the best option in this game on both sides of the ball. Even though I do like the pass catching in this game, but similar to that last game, I think the locks so far have been, Henry and Madison are lock type of players. I just love the matchup for both of them. But I do like pass catchers in this game as well.
Absolutely. Atlanta side, Ridley. I'm not a Julio guy anymore. I'm off the Julio bandwagon completely. That dude's hammy.
The thing with you've got to be worried with the hamstring. The thing with Julio was, listen, he got you a ton of points without scoring touchdowns. Right, he's not going to get you those same numbers anymore. He's not going to get the same number of catches and yards, and probably not going to increase his touchdowns any. There's no reason to see he's going to increase touchdown production. So I think his upside now is really hindered on the Julio side. So I think you're right. We've got to get on the Ridley bandwagon here.
Ridley is the guy. I don't know what the deal is with Gage. He has not looked great this season. I'm happy not to have to worry about Zacchaeus this week again, but. With Gage, he hasn't looked that great either. I have to be honest. I liked him at the end of last season. Got him on a lot of my best ball teams. Has not produced, but I think that could turn around. But it's really hard. They've priced him up to a point where I find that he's getting close to unplayable.
I'll say it's tough watching some of these older quarterbacks, and Ryan being one of them. When they get pressure on them. I mean, these guys just can't move. Like
nowhere to go.
They never could move when they could move, and now they really can't move. Watching Brady was painful. Watching Ryan is painful here at times. Rivers, same boat. Watching some of these guys is painful. So, but if you get them against a team that's not going to put a lot of pressure on them, Ryan can still put up big time numbers with those wide receivers. So I do like them in this game. I like game stacks here.
I'm not like as in love with either quarterback in this game, to be honest. I think Minnesota has a definite path to like having the running backs steal all the touchdowns.
Agreed. Atlanta has given up, though. They are the worst team quarterback passer rating on defense by far. So they're giving it up. Their quarterback rating is 117.7. They're giving up to quarterbacks.
They're getting torched.
Rating. They're getting torched by. So they're capable. Minnesota's capable of and Thielen would be that guy if you're going to stack it. I think you're going to go with the Thielen side. I think he's in a really good matchup in this one. So there's some options here that you can stack.
Absolutely, and I also think that on the Minnesota side, that Jefferson has looked really good, deep ball threat. Priced up a little bit on DraftKings in particular, but on FanDuel still basically priced as a turd, and I like him quite a bit in this game on the Minnesota. He's a big play guy. He's like a Darius Slayton from the Giants, where the offense doesn't have to go bananas, and he could still do it because he's getting all of the deep plays. Thielen's playing his usual role, which is much more possession and much more PPR and scoring touchdowns. He smashes. But you've got Jefferson now, who is some of the biggest air yard shares in the NFL, and 20+ yard targets. So he's a really, really good play as well. I don't know that we need to talk about any more on this game. I really like it. Atlanta, Minnesota, you're going to load them up. Madison. Again, I'm not doing the girly thing. I'm just not. I'm staying on that horse. Even if he had a good game last, I'm just staying on it. I don't know why. I don't like his snap counts. I don't like the 50%, and he's priced up after a couple of good weeks. I'm just going to be off of it and hope that he fails. So that's it for that one. Let's move on to the next game in the core 4. Lions at Jaguars. All right. The Detroit Lions travel to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars as 3.5-point favorites with a monster 54.5-point game total. John, it's a lot of high game totals, man. This is another one. 54.5 points. Close game, high scoring. It's got all the sexy things we want in a game to target for daily fantasy purposes. But let me ask you about some betting angles here. So does anything stand out here about this line to you? Just in general, Lions being road favorites, Jaguars kind of like up and down team here. They're at home. Anything stand out here from a betting point of view?
Yeah, I think at least from the public standpoint, Detroit here is where all the money is going to be, the Detroit side of this game. Jacksonville is not getting a ton of respect. Especially coming off the poor performance last week. So I think we're going to see a lot of play. I'm not going to be on this game, but we're going to see most of the public really like Detroit. I don't particularly like it if I'm given that extra hook there, the 3.5. Would like it a little bit more at 3, maybe lower, but not a game for me. But you will see, I think most of the public is going to like that game. But it's another one of those games where high total, as far as DFS goes, high total, tight spread. Those are the games you like to look at to target. Although we've got to make one note. 50 is the new 47. So
yeah.
So it's these games are like 3 points more scoring per game. So we've got to take it with a grain of salt when we see just because the game's 50-51. That's only slightly above average now compared to where the league was just a year ago.
Absolutely, and taking a look at the power rankings models. Interestingly, nothing like stands out super on this game, and we kind of covered that before, where Detroit actually has not necessarily been an automatic, hey, let's just target everybody against them team, but the Jaguars have been. So you've got like two opposing forces working against one another. Matt Stafford has yet to have a big game this season. When I was analyzing this game, Stafford just hasn't had that big game. We're week 6. One thing to note has been Golladay has been out for most of the season. He's back now, and he's the absolute primary weapon. Marvin Jones Jr. has just not had a very good year at all. So it's understandable why Stafford hasn't gotten there. But could this be the time? Detroit really doesn't run the football. I guess they do. Maybe having Adrian Peterson there has kind of like diminished things and slowed things down. He's a style of runner. He's actually been successful enough. It's kind of annoying that it's held down the Detroit passing game a little bit. I mean, I love Golladay here. That's for sure.
I think Golladay is just in a great spot in this game. So I would. This is another game that I'm going to like on both sides. Do you like some of the options on Jacksonville side? We got to see what's going on with Shark in this game before we start really being able to break it down. But I think Chark playing or not just going to change on which direction we go. But this is a very stackable game. Very good game, stackable game. I don't necessarily like like you said, I don't love the options on the Detroit side as far as running the ball. We could take Jacksonville running the ball should have some success against Detroit. So
I
so
can't
we're
mess
okay
with.
there.
I'm not messing with Detroit running back. Period.
No,
Ever.
I can't do it.
No. But James Robinson, he looks great. I mean, he's not getting as much of like the goal line work as I want in terms of a touchdown score. But like he looks great. They throw to him. He is in the game the whole time, and some of these games for Jacksonville, they've been blown out. So if this game stays close, they're at home. Yeah, you gotta like Robinson here, and that does vet out here in the model, but also just our knowledge and our discussion previously of the Lions, where if you just look at their games, it was Aaron Jones, it was Latavius Murray putting up numbers on them. So it was these types of running backs that are smashing through around the goal line against them, and so maybe more of that will continue. So I like, on the Detroit side, it's just Kenny Golladay for me for the most part. I guess you can throw in a little Hawkinson, who's been just overpriced all season for the production. On the Jaguar side, I don't know what's going on with their wide receiver. Like with no Chark, there's just not a lot of excitement for me if Chark isn't in. I don't really like Keelan Cole all that much. I don't even know who the other wide receiver is. Who's the other wide receiver for Jacksonville?
Shenault.
Laviska Shenault. Laviska Shenault's been all right. So Laviska Shenault's been like more of a kind of a value play most of the season, getting a consistent 15 fantasy points per game.
He's getting targeted per route on a percentage basis higher. Now, Chark hasn't been in all there, but on a percentage basis, he's been targeted 21%. Per route, so he's getting the targets, and his fantasy points per target are the same as Chark. So, he will definitely be an option in this game, regardless whether Chark plays or not. But yeah, it could be a situation where we'd rather have Chark. We talk about that a lot, having the number one guy. But this is a game. You've got two up-tempo teams. You've got two teams that are in the top 10 in offensive pace. So again, that leads to more scoring, more plays. And those are the kind of things that we like. We definitely want up tempo. I don't think we look at that enough. We look at that a lot in NBA. We don't look at it enough in the NFL. But these are two up tempo offenses, more plays, more chance for fantasy points.
Game pace is super, super important. All right, let's move on to the final of the core 4 games for the week. I'm going to actually switch up our transition in this one. Check it out. Get ready for it. But we've got the Browns taking on the Steelers. I switched it up on you.
Yes, I like it.
All right.
It's good.
I love these things, man. Keep them coming, guys. They don't realize. These guys send me these things, and I'm like, yeah, I'll play it. All right. Browns, Steelers, 51-point total. Steelers, 3.5-point home favorites. Now, John, I was really surprised. I was legitimate. I was very surprised to see this game show up as an over 50-point game and to make the core 4. And we talked about a little bit at the beginning of the show how Cleveland and Pittsburgh have kind of produced higher fantasy outcomes than what we might have expected so far this season. Pittsburgh, to me, in my mind, they're a very aggressive blitzing defense, and maybe that's part of what has led to this. They're very aggressive. They blitz the quarterback at a very, very high rate. They generate pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and they've been one of the best run defenses in the National Football League going back a couple of seasons. But we just saw them get torn up by Miles Sanders.
Well, that Miles Sanders really one run. I think he had one run for like
it was one kind of like
yards.
Breakout run that happens. Yeah,
other than that, they really had him contained. They had him contained pretty good. So that's going to happen sometimes. But yeah, I'm looking at your thing, Pittsburgh. Do I have that wrong on there?
I've got an error in here. But
I've got an error.
Yeah,
I got to fix the Baltimore.
There we go. We discover on screen, but Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland is projecting for a lot of rushing yards. So like. Cleveland's a big-time running team, and I assume that their high level of yardage totals in general is part of this. But they're projecting for a lot of rushing yards in a game where it's going to be all cream. No, it's all cream.
Well, they're projecting so high just because they've done so well.
Yeah.
So I believe they're the number one rushing team that I have on my rankings so far. So yeah, they're running the ball really well, and they're kind of, there's an emphasis on the run with them as well. So they're not doing a whole lot with Baker. I mean, he's lucky to throw 200 yards in a game. He's almost, and certainly in this matchup, you're not going to use him at all here. I don't want to use. Maybe on an individual basis, I could use OBJ in as an individual plug-in, but probably not at that price.
I considered it. Yeah. I already have my sheet already kind of like mostly done. I was like, I stared long and hard at Odell, man. I really did. And I could not pull the trigger on him to even get him in my player pool. He's just not getting enough target.
Really, like I said, his game, we talked about it last week. That big game that he had against Dallas was a bit unusual. One trick play. It was actually two trick plays. Trick play pass from Landry, and then he had the run on a whatever it was, a reverse or whatever he ran there for 50 yards. So that took up a bulk of the points. That was 2 touchdowns. It's just one of those games. I'm having a hard time with this Cleveland offense really loving their passing. The passing options, just because they're just not focused on it, and in this game, I do think we're going to get a heavy dose of Hunt here. So I'm fine with Hunt. I know we don't like to necessarily target Pittsburgh, but they haven't been great defensively. That's why we're seeing this total where it is. And if you look at my numbers, if we just based it off of this year, I'm looking at a 56-point total in this game as opposed to 51. So that's just strictly based off of the numbers this year. Now that's partially Cleveland putting up Cleveland's put up a lot of points, and they've done it without passing the ball, which is tough. But similar to what Tennessee's done in the past. So, like I said, with that said, yeah, we've got a high total in this game. Again, we've got that 3.5 point spread, which does look a little. This is another game that kind of screams sucker bet on the favorite side. I think a lot of people think Pittsburgh's just a lot better. I think Cleveland's just better than people think. And I know there's going to be sharp play here on there's going to be some sharp money on Cleveland this week. I think Pittsburgh's a little bit overvalued, and I think Cleveland's undervalued here. So from a betting perspective, that's the side I'm looking at.
All right, so let's talk Pittsburgh for a minute. Chase Claypool.
I did mention him last week.
Did you?
I didn't remember mentioning him, but someone did bring it up to me.
Did you have him in your player pool?
No, so it doesn't count because I said the only way. Well, we were talking about players in the game, and the only reason I brought up Claypool was how well he was doing on a points per route basis. But it just wasn't a game that we were particularly interested in. So I did not use any. I didn't use any Pittsburgh stacks, and certainly didn't use any Philly stacks. But if you were going to use them, he was an option. I did win my head to head with you because Deontay.
I mean, he got hurt, man.
Because of his injury. Yeah, Juju was terrible. Juju was terrible, like 6.8 points. But yeah, Claypool is actually a thing. I mean,
by the way, that's an honorable loss. That's an honorable loss.
It was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, fuck Juju. Juju is I like Juju Smith. He's not the guy that we thought. He's priced completely incorrectly for what he's done for like the last 2.5 seasons.
He's not their number one guy.
No, he's existing on reputation, and people continue to roster him. See, let me explain a little something about the Draftkings and FanDuel, but Draftkings salary algorithm. Part of it is player demand. So basically, Draftkings looks at it and goes, hey, if this guy's getting rostered 12%, 10%, 8% in the 6K range, why would we lower it? We're just going to keep it here. Until his rostering goes down to like 2 or 3, and then they say, all right, the field has picked up on the fact that this guy is not the main guy, and now we could drop him where he belongs, probably in the high 4, to low 5K range, right? Claypool, everybody said, hey, what about Claypool? Claypool had 2 big games so far this season, both of which were when Deontay Johnson came out of the game with an injury. I do believe, though, that last week's performance cannot be ignored. So now we're not going to know usages. I do think James Washington probably should be demoted, assuming that Deontay comes back. And if not, you have to look at Chase Claypool as the number one. If Deontay does not play, I think Claypool is pretty much a slam dunk here. If he's going to be in the game the whole time, he's gonna do some damage, man. This kid seems to have incredible talent.
I would agree with you on that. Juju is not their number one guy, so you have to get that out of your head now. Even though I did beat you on that bet, just because
I don't accept that. I don't accept it.
I do agree with you. It's not, this is not Juju. This is not the guy anymore. And Claypool, I like when you, so before the season, excuse me, before the year, Claypool was a really deep sleeper. People, as far as fantasy goes, people didn't like Claypool.
He is on my dynasty team, I want to be clear, and I've just elevated him. This morning, I elevated Claypool in my dynasty team from the, that little squad where you hold players that you draft that you can't use. I took him out of the practice squad or whatever you call it, and he's now on my in my roster, not even on the bench.
Well, when I see those type of players actually start to perform, that's a good sign for me, because this is someone that we had some expectation for, had talent, and now it's so it's not someone who came out of nowhere, per se.
Yeah, no, a talented guy, a rookie, looked great, got overlooked not because he didn't look like an incredibly talented kid. It's because you looked at the Steelers and you said, well, they got Deontay Johnson, they got Juju Smith-Schuster, you got James Washington over there, and there's not going to be a place for him. Very similar to Gaby Davis from the Bills, where you kind of looked at the Bills and go, well, they got a lot of players on that team. Not really sure this kid has a spot right now, but the injury to John Brown, and all of a sudden it's Gabriel Davis. Hey man, how you doing? Rookie wide receiver. So I love those situations. Gotta love it here. And
it's the opposite of what we were talking about earlier when I said, if you have expectations for a player like a Drake or something like that coming into the year, and then you're just not seeing it. It's not necessarily performance all the time. It's usage. Usage is more important than
especially
or anything else. Especially running back. Opportunities are everything in this game. So, if you're not seeing teams utilize players the way we thought they were, of course that's going to be, by the time we get to week 6 here, you've got to take that into account. You just can't keep beating your head against the wall on these players. And then the flip on that is a guy like Claypool, where you say, this is a guy who was being talked about. He was a deep sleeper type of pick. And like you said, he was just stuck on a team maybe where he was, there was 3 other options. They could kind of bring him along slowly. Well, if the talent comes out and it shows its head, then you've got to respect that here. So I would agree with you here. If you're going to stack Pittsburgh if you're going to use a Pittsburgh stack, certainly Claypool would probably be the number one guy. Although I don't know if I'm in love with this matchup as much as I am with some of the others.
Well, again, if I'm believing my power rankings, and I do, Pittsburgh is projecting for 295 passing yards, which is one of the highest on the slate. Actually, I believe the highest on the slate on a passing game performance. Outside of when we get into the crazy
the night game,
outside of that, but I mean they are projecting for the most passing yards on the slate. And on the flip side of this, I do want to mention it as part of this game. So I want to get a piece. I don't think I'm not a Ben Roethlisberger guy. He's too old. And I just don't roster these old quarterbacks anymore. I don't like their abilities of scoring giant scores. They just are slow and they can't move. And I mean, I kind of feel a little bit the same about Matt Ryan, but I continue to roster him. But the last time we've seen a Ben Roethlisberger tournament winning performance, I still had I didn't have any gray hair. I mean, it's been a while. So all right, I don't want to rip on myself too hard, but I didn't have any gray hair. That's how long it's been. And the other thing, the other angle for this game for me before we move on to the lightning round and bust through the rest of these games, I think Cleveland defense is worth a sniff here. Okay, they're a better defensive team than they get a lot of credit for, and Roethlisberger is very sackable. He stands there like a statue. He does wait to throw the football. I think Cleveland defense is worth a sniff. John, what do you say?
I think just they are strictly from the fact that they can get to the passer, and that's what we look at. I want quarterback. I like quarterbacks who have a little bit more of a turnover
Yeah, no, it's not my favorite, but I
ability.
think, yeah, it's not like, hey, I just think that no one will have them. And you could turn over Ben. You can strip sack him. You could take a fumble away from him. Like, there are paths to Cleveland defense doing okay here.
Yeah, absolutely. I like teams with, and Cleveland puts pressure on the quarterback, I think, just about as well as anybody in the league. So they're not as great in the secondary, but that's fine. When we're looking at defenses in DFS, again, throw the points out the window. The points don't correlate. Don't look at team totals or totals on the games. It just does not correlate well to points being scored. Sometimes it works out, like last week with Baltimore, but that's not always the case. We're looking for, can you pressure the quarterback? And Cleveland can. Actually, both teams in this game really pressure the quarterback well. So both sides of this game.
Miles Garrett will rip your fucking head off, man, and he'll smash you with his helmet.
He will do that.
He'll stomp on it.
But I can see both. The only thing you don't like on the Cleveland side is they don't throw it a lot. So I love having, defensively, you love having a team playing against, you like to have a team that throws the ball quite a bit, playing against a team that gets really good pressure on the quarterback, especially with a quarterback who has shown the ability to turn the ball over quite a bit.
Pittsburgh side.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so again,
exactly.
It's one of the reasons why the fact that this is one of the higher game totals of the slate was surprising for me, because I look at both of these teams a little bit as really good defensive teams and ones that I don't tend to look to target teams against. I don't know that I'll have a ton of exposure to this game, but I do think I'm like I said, if Deontay doesn't play, I don't like to chase scores. I hate chasing scores, but I don't think that Claypool is so chasey until they jack up his salary. I still think he's very playable if Deontay is out. And I think you got to even consider Kareem here in a matchup that I normally avoid for running backs. It's not going to be a play I'm going to be all over, but the numbers say, take a little cream in your coffee, you're going to be good. All right, so let's move on. That was awesome. Before we move on to the lightning round, I want to mention again, guys, if you want to support this podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel or Stitcher or iHeartRadio, wherever you hear this, iTunes. Make sure you're subscribing to it so that you'll get the next notification whenever we go live. We do this every week. We have a few different shows we do every week. You're going to want that. Also, make sure, again, to check out our sponsor for this show. That is No House Advantage, where you can play props for cash. Promo code ARMY. So there we go. Now, let's move on to the lightning round, where we will take a quick look at all of the rest of the games of the week from a daily fantasy and sports betting angles perspective. The lightning round. All right, John, this one's a stinker. I'm not proud to even have to talk about it. We've got the Giants at home, favored against the Washington team. 43.5 point total. Does anything stand out for you here from a betting angle on this game? Danny Dimes looks like he's going up against Kyle Allen. Dwayne Haskins hasn't even shown up ever since they benched him. He's not feeling well. So I don't know what the hell's going on with the Redskins, Washington team, and the Giant team has just looked terrible.
Yeah, I gave this game out yesterday. Yeah, yesterday I gave it out because I wanted to catch this game before the line moved, and I know you
love 2.5 points, so we must be betting. We must be taking the Giants here minus 2.5.
No, I got it. It was at 3 yesterday when I gave it out. So I wanted the 3, which is why I gave it out early. So I advised our guys to jump on that. Washington 3, side. And it has moved down to 2.5 now. So hopefully the subscribers got that in yesterday when it was still at 3, because this game was 3 pretty much across the board. Yesterday,
Giants are just terrible. I mean, they're so bad.
The Giants look bad. Yeah, the offense is just bad. I mean, that was the fear last week. They looked like a really good stack because you're playing Dallas, who had looked just equally bad defensively. But I always get worried in those games because it takes 2 to tango. So it's hard to get it's hard to use the worst. I don't care what the matchups were. Like the worst is the worst. And they were fine. Slayton was good. So Slayton was good for us, and he was a guy.
Slayton
that
came through big game, and I actually like Slayton here as well. By the way, he's the only guy that's making plays.
Shepard's probably gonna be back. I know Slayton's gonna be their main guy anyway, but I think Shepard might be back this week. I
actually think that will help. That'll help the Giants' offense as a whole. They do function a little bit better, but the Giants have the same problem the Jets do, which is they really do lack good players on offense, especially after losing Saquon Barkley. There's just no one good on that offense. Taking a quick look at the power rankings, it's about as gross as I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's just horrific.
It's a game we're going to want to avoid. I mean, again, you could take if you want to just take single pieces in this game, McLaurin or Slayton or something like that.
No,
if you
McLaurin.
want to use Ingram, I don't want to take it, but but you're not stacking this game.
Let me. I'll bust this out real quick. McLaurin, James Bradbury. I've been telling you guys every week: do not play players who are getting covered by him. Number one wide receivers have not done well against the Giants, and then you take away McLaurin's college teammate Dwayne Haskins. Bring in, Kelly. It's a no-go for me right now. I don't like it. The only player that I'm interested in, and it's only if the salary is right on the correct format and setting, is Antonio Gibson. I do like his usage. They're throwing to him a little bit. He's an explosive player. So outside of an Antonio Gibson, this whole game is gross. Slayton, Gibson, and maybe Washington defense. I don't know. Either defense exciting. I mean, I think either one could be used.
Oh, the defense is definitely usable here because you're going to have. I assume we don't know yet with the Washington situation if we're going to get Kyle Allen. I guess we don't 100% know, but whether it's Allen, I mean Smith historically not great to target against. He's pretty efficient with the ball.
I think it's going to be Allen playing.
But if it is Allen, I'll feel a lot better about taking the Giant defense. Both defenses are in play.
Yeah, both have played well. All right, next game on the lightning round, we've got the Bears at the Panthers. Panthers 2.5-point favorites. Bears looking great this season so far, but does anything stand out to you here? 45-point game total. It's on the low side, in my opinion, considering Panthers defense hasn't been very good. Bears, they got Foles in there. Maybe they're a little bit better with him in there compared to before. And it's got that magical 2.5 number that I know you like to really focus on. So does anything stand out here? Panthers minus 2.5. Is that a spot we should target?
I'm not too excited about either side of this game. I think the total is a bit low, and I think the Bears are basically driving that total down on both sides of the ball. So I think the Bears defense looked really good against Tampa. But again, I mean, when you have a team like the Bears who can put pressure on the quarterback, playing basically a guy who can't move, they're gonna look even better than they have. So I think this is a match. I'm kind of leaning on the over in this game. I think we'll get more points in this game than we think. I think Foles is going to continue to get better as well in this offense. I don't know. I mean, Chicago quarterbacks have burned me in the past, but I want to see Foles in this. Last week I thought was a tough matchup. This is his third week now. I'd like to see. I'd like to see how he looks here in this game. A game that he should be able to put points up.
I surprisingly like a lot of pieces from the Bears. I never like the Bears pieces. I like a lot of pieces from the Bears this week. I don't like
a great matchup.
I love Montgomery, man. I don't like him. I love him this week, and I've never loved David Montgomery. Where's David Montgomery? His cousin's out there. He hangs out.
It's tough to love David Montgomery in this match. Robinson's the piece I really like in this game.
I love A-Rod. Let me convince you here. Without Tariq Cohen, David Montgomery in a terrible matchup against a Tampa defense that stops the run, 8 targets, 7 receptions. They throw to him. Scored didn't do much in the running game, and he never does. But I just love the target game work. I mean, you're going to give me a cheap running back that is thrown to. I like that. And that's the excitement for me about David Montgomery. I mean, I'm not going all in, but at 5,800, for example, on DraftKings, I think that's a good price for a starting running back on a team like this. I do. I think it's a good price. Allen Robinson, of course, I love. And that's it. No other passing from the Bears. And I think with the Panthers, it's not the best of situations for any of them. They've been on fire. Their salaries are up based on performances. Mike Davis. Do we know, is Christian McCaffrey due back? I mean, there's
Not
some
this
discussion. Not this week?
I don't believe he'll be playing this week.
Some discussion. And you know, Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, we love them all. But and I love the condensed offense here. We'll have to take a look a little deeper to see if any of those guys who are now currently priced up very high relative to kind of where they were earlier in the season. They've had a bunch of great matchups. They've all produced. So there may be a little bit of hesitation. And I might have some hesitation. I mean, what do you do with Mike Davis priced up like a stud?
You know, he's getting very close to McCaffrey type touches in these games. I mean, he's got to be one of the top options. Davis, with the amount of
Man,
I know
hard to mentally get there. It's the Bill. It's the Bears. A good defense.
Well, that's the problem. It's the Bears. So he's definitely not in as nice a situation as we saw earlier, Henry or Madison. So right there is going to knock down his ownership. Yeah, so it's going to knock the ownership down quite a bit because you're going to be. I know I'm going to be high on both of those, so my personal ownership will be lower here on Davis in this game. But I think on the whole, that's gonna put a weight on Davis's ownership.
I'm going to throw Draftkings up here just so you see the salaries. I don't know if it's visible here.
Yeah,
but if you look at this grouping, you've got Henry, Madison, Connor, Mike Davis, Kareem Hunt, Robinson, and Sanders. I mean, they're all about the same price. And your finger is going to naturally go towards Henry and Madison here. It's just where it's going to go.
Yeah, looking at that list, he's probably not even my third option, Davis. Just looking at that. So, yeah,
that's where your finger is going to go. It's going to go to those two. They're just more studly.
Yeah, his ownership will definitely be fairly depressed this week.
All right, let's move on to the next game on the lightning round. There's not that many games here. We're getting to it. We got the Bengals. We got the Colts. 47-point game total. Colts coming in as pretty significant 8-point home favorites. And, you know, the Bengals are coming off a game where, I mean, they were just walloped. They were walloped by the Ravens. That's what the Ravens do. So, you know, rookie quarterback, got a rookie lesson. You know, got the rookie lesson in, hey, you don't fuck with the Ravens. We're a very serious defense. And the Ravens didn't need to do much offensively in that game. Now you got the Colts who want to smack you in the face, knock you around a little bit, run the football, and just kind of play slow, limit opposing scoring. Number one, from a betting angles point of view, 8-point spread, a little high or about right for you?
I think this game's. I think it's in the right. I think we're in the right ballpark here with the 8. It didn't shock me one way or the other when I saw that number. The 47, 47 right now, 46.5. As we talked about, that's actually a pretty low number in today's NFL. So we're looking at this game being under average, which is probably why we're not too excited over it. Just the Colts have just been not this from a DFS standpoint. The Colt games have just been not good at all. I don't anticipate this game getting much better from a DFS standpoint. So I would be looking at, and if you look at pace, I believe the Colts. I'd have to go back and look, but I believe the Colts are the slowest pace in football. So just a lot of negatives in this game. I wouldn't get too excited about this on any one side for and Taylor has just not been good. Like we're expecting some rushing yards here, but I have a feeling it won't all be Taylor. So I can't even get behind a running back in a game where I've got a touchdown favorite. Where normally we might like to have the running back in a situation like this, but I don't know. I mean, Taylor, this should be a good spot for him, but I just don't trust I don't trust the talent or the usage right now.
Man, you fucking nailed it, man. It should be, but can we trust Jonathan Taylor in this spot? I can't deal with the Colts pass catchers at all, to be clear. I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't like it. I don't want anything to do with it. So you take a look at Jonathan Taylor, and, you know, we had such high hopes for this young man. 12 carries last week. Only barely any passing game work. 17, 13. The numbers have not been there for Taylor to where we can trust him. Doesn't mean he can't have a breakout game, John. It could happen.
He could. I'm just not in the little bit that I've watched. He just hasn't shown a whole lot. He hasn't shown a lot of elusiveness. He's just kind of a run right at you and try to break tackles type of guy. He's not running. I'm not seeing him bouncing out and hitting the. He's just kind of hitting the hole that the play was designed.
I don't.
I was wondering in the passing game if they trust him enough, and maybe that's why he's not out there. From a blocking perspective, I don't know. I haven't watched it close enough to see, but he's just not getting enough. He's just not getting enough catches in the passing game or targets in the passing game for me.
I don't like to judge it. I don't like to say he's not good at this or that. All I know is he's not getting that work, and so he's not getting the work. I mean, Jonathan Wilkins is being brought in. They got Nyheim Hines in there. The snap share isn't there, so it just is what it is. Can't be trusted, but that doesn't preclude him from having a big game. But just again, the way he's salaried on DraftKings, it doesn't come together. You're not going to pay the same for Jonathan Taylor that you're going to pay for Kareem Hunt or Derrick Henry, or Alexander Madison. It's just not as good. I mean, the cash plays are super clear for me at running back for the most part. All right, let's move on to the next game in the lightning round. Ravens taking on the Eagles. Ravens road 7.5 point favorites. Game total 47.5, John. And here's the deal. I think we learned something about what's going on with the Ravens last week. And what we learned is this phenomenon from last year where they would beat up on a bad team and just put points on them nonstop, have Lamar Jackson out there running around like a lunatic, even when they're up 38-45 to 3. That era is done. They didn't run him even once last week. They were in a blowout against the Bengals, and they basically said Lamar, who was coming off some sort of a knee injury, and I do believe that knee injury lingers and is still affecting him. They said, Lamar, don't take chances anymore. We're going to do that when we need it. But right now, the analogy I used, I don't know if I did that on the Wolf Pack, where I compared him to an MMA fighter who's really great at grappling and takedowns, but who's against like a shitty opponent. So he's like, I'm going to test my striking against this guy. And you know what I mean? And all of a sudden this guy that is just a wrestler is out there, throwing strikes and winning. And you're like, oh, wow, that opponent must be so bad that they don't even give a shit. They're out there, doing what they're not that good at just to see how it goes. Like I kind of use that analogy here. Now you take on the Eagles, who they're probably the most up and down team in the league for me. 1 week they look not bad. The next week they look absolutely horrific. I lean towards the horrible. I just do. I kind of lean towards that they suck. Really, they suck. But then they look pretty good the next week. So maybe I don't know. Does anything stand out about the line here? Ravens coming in at but also at 7.5 point favorite, but also, do you see any real fantasy relevant action in this game? Because I don't.
I'm with you on that. So just on the line, I think that's probably the line is in a spot where it probably needs to be. I'm not overly excited about this game at all on either side. I think maybe just from if you're into teasers, maybe teasing the Baltimore side down, that would be about it. But I could get behind an under on this game as well. I think what you were saying earlier is spot on with Lamar, and I've warned everybody about these quarterbacks. As soon as you see some sort of a lower body injury to guys like Lamar, Mahomes, even Russ, any of these guys who, and I'm not calling them running quarterbacks, right? Because Mahomes is not a running quarterback; he's just a quarterback who can run. But look at all the great plays that these guys make. They don't make them they don't make the plays sitting in the pocket, taking a 5-step drop, and then hitting. It's always they take the 5-step drop. There's a little pressure. They roll out. They run. Then they make the big play. When they don't have that part of their game, they can't play like a Brady or Rivers and those guys who played pretty much their whole career. Because they just haven't had it. They don't have. They never were handicapped in that way. So be careful playing guys who have these young quarterbacks who run really well and run to throw. Be careful playing them when they have leg injuries. And that said,
I want to add to that. You don't necessarily know, like, what happened with Russell Wilson. Hey, he's playing. All right, he must be fine. That one season. And he just wasn't himself. He couldn't scramble around, exactly as you said. He wasn't producing. And even if they tell us that Lamar Jackson's fine, the knee is okay, knee issues linger, and we can't really 100% trust. I think, John, that we almost need to see it at this point from Lamar to believe it is where I'm going with it.
If you look at my number, I updated that page. If you refresh it, I fixed it to Philly, but from off of Pittsburgh. But if you look at Baltimore, I mean, they've just been just horrible in the passing numbers.
He's off. So he's not. He's one. Before I heard about the knee injury, what I was saying to people is, it looks like Lamar has. I actually wrote this in my notes. It looks like Lamar has regressed in his passing. Again, do quarterbacks actually regress, or could this be a lingering knee injury that's kind of caused his accuracy to go off? I mean, the miss of Marquise Brown on that Monday night game, that's just not a pass that Lamar should be missing. I've seen a lot of those, and it seems right now that the primary guy, because he's big and he's kind of in the middle of the field, is just going to be Mark Andrews, that they're just going to hammer it to Andrews because he's a giant target, and he's the best touchdown scorer on that team. Let's see what the updated numbers show. Yeah, I mean, look at this rushing total for Philly, man. It's gross. And this whole game, not good. Not good. I don't want anything to do with this. No. It's a big no for me. It's just a big no. Don't fuck with this game. Is that fair?
I would agree. Move on.
Yeah, I'm not even showing that on screen, but yeah, it's a big, yeah, I'm pointing at it as if you could see it, but it's a big no. So yeah, don't fuck with that game, guys. All right, let's move on to the next one. Broncos, Patriots. I'm surprised that they even put a line on this game, because we're not sure if Drew Lock is going to play. It's going to be one of these other turds. It's not clear, but Patriots coming in as massive 9.5-point home favorites. I love Patriots defense in this spot, regardless of who the quarterback is for either team. But I do think Cam Newton will be back.
He should be back. He's got plenty of time now, and he was asymptomatic. I don't think there's going to be a problem with him.
Yeah. Now, what do you say? Do you see anything in the line here that stands out in terms of interest? Maybe that total of 46. I know game totals have been high this season, but man, I'm gonna play the under a little bit.
Well, that's a relatively, when you get these big lines with a low total, it's typically it's typical that you'd like to have the dog in that game. So if the dog wins, it's typically going to go under, and if the favorite wins, the game is likely to go over. That's just, obviously that's not a hard and fast rule, but a lot of times in games where you have a high spread with a low total, you're if the game stays low scoring, of course, it lends to the underdog having a shot in the game.
Just to get my head around it, the dog winning in this game, meaning they turned it into a disgusting defensive affair.
It's 2013 type of game.
Yeah, neither team is scoring a whole lot, and the dog comes through in the end.
Yeah, if the game goes over, typically then it's then we're looking at a game where New England maybe scores 27, 30 points and gets this game 30-20 or something like that, and the game goes over.
Would a typical parlay in a game like this just be betting the under and taking the underdog?
Yeah, I mean, you could. There actually was what was called correlated parlays, and you really couldn't find them in the NFL, but you get them in College Weekly. You can't play them anymore. But
no books allow this, right?
They won't allow it anymore. There used to be a way that you would just make a ton of money. You would actually do that. So you would the correlated parlay was on the forgive me, I'm not going to get the math 100% right, but you needed to be about 1/3 of so the spread had to be about 1/3 of the total. So if you had like a 60-point total with a 20-point spread, you'd see those in college quite a bit. Then you could have a correlated parlay there, so you could bet the favorite and the over, or bet the under and the dog in two different parlays, and it would actually be plus money over time. Which I want to learn. They don't allow those anymore.
I want to learn what all these correlated parlays were that are disallowed, and I want to understand that. So we'll take that for another day, because I'm fascinated by it. And I do believe that things that sports books disallow are things that we should be targeting in DFS because they are allowed. So you got to figure out a way to translate how to do that.
Yeah, you'd have to. So again, so if you do like, if you like the Denver side of this game, I would just say that's probably going to be a low scoring game, which, and quite frankly, New England has just not been a great team. And obviously Denver has not been a great team in DFS. So this is not a game I'm particularly excited about. High total, we just and get off again. We've got to get off the notion, as we saw before with the Giants and Jets and things like that. Those are teams that are generally big underdogs. You got to get off the notion of, well, they're going to be losing, so they're going to be throwing. They also suck.
Yeah, they can't throw. Yeah,
they're going to be losing because they suck.
Yeah.
So it's not, it's a lot different when Dallas with Dak is losing. And you're like, well, this is great because he's just going to throw the ball every time for 500 yards. This is, when you've got bad, Denver is a bad offense. Just because they're down in this game 2 touchdowns doesn't mean they're going to actually move the ball.
The Jets throwing has meant virtually nothing.
Exactly.
It's really exciting to roster a wide receiver who got 11 targets and caught 3 of them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is why there's certain teams like Atlanta who can really, in my opinion, they're not one of the worst. They're a 500 type of team, whatever the record's
offensively,
gonna be.
I think they're a good offense, and defensively, they're a very bad.
Exactly, but it's a team that could play with other, right? So it's not a team that they're not the Jets who just are just struggling. The Jets have killed me from a betting standpoint. We'll get to them soon.
Stop betting on the Jets.
You can't. I have teams like that every year, unfortunately.
Stop.
But
All right.
This is a game we can't get too excited about. Denver, and then we've got you got the DUI with Melvin Gordon. So I don't know if he's going to play this weekend. We'll have plenty more time to figure it out.
The only thing in play here, we don't even need to get into it. The only thing from a fantasy standpoint that you want to do here is play Patriots defense. That's it. Move on. Don't touch this game. No Cam. He's got no Cam. No nothing. I don't want it. Jets, Dolphins, 48-point total. Dolphins, giant. Where things have gone. Dolphins, 9.5-point favorites.
This is crazy.
Coming in to put a beating on the Jets, by the way. The Jets are one of the worst teams I've ever really gotten the displeasure of watching play. I've been a Jets fan. You're a Jets fan, I think, or at least you're a watcher of.
I'm from New York, but I've watched plenty.
You've watched enough Jets. I'm a Jets fan. Yeah. I saw a great letter. There was a great open letter that Gangrene Nation sent to Chris Johnson that if you guys can Google that and find it, it really is amazing. It really talks about how Jets fan, listen, we're willing to suffer with this team. We're the most loyal, but all we ever asked for was hope. All we ever asked for was at least a glimmer of hope. And they said, Chris Johnson, you've taken that from us. And for the first time in decades, Jets fans don't give a shit if the team loses. They don't actually watch the games anymore. I went a streak of, 35, 40 years, some number of years without missing a Jets game. And now I don't even watch them because it's painful and it's horrible to watch this team. They ruin the quarterback. The offense is disgusting. Instead of firing Gaze, they released Le'Veon Bell. Wait, it wasn't bad enough we got rid of Jamal Adams, our best defensive player. The only good player on our offense, I don't want to say our best, the only good player on the Jets offense was Le'Veon Bell. He was the only guy who was talented. Actually, no, we made sure to get rid of Robbie Anderson it's not believable what they've done. Why? Again, I'm going to make an appeal, guys, and please write in. Kevin Allen for GM of the New York Jets. Please let me fix this team, Chris Johnson. I can help, okay? I can be 10 times better than what's going on. I'm not saying I'm the best, but I can do better than what you've got. I will give you guys hope. Somebody write in the campaign, man. I think I need to be in charge of that team. I'll have to give up DFS Army to John to do it. I'm willing.
Well, I'm hoping you don't get the job then.
You have to take it over. All right. So Jets are terrible. Dolphins going to put a beating on them. Is there anything here from a bet? I know you're betting the Jets again because you like punishment.
Listen, if every year this happens, and typically with the words, just because the way my model tends to work is it likes to come off of teams playing after 1 or 2 bad games, and so obviously it's going to wind up hammering the Jets. So I get this every year. I wind up betting I'll bet a team that just loses a ton of games, and everyone will say, almost every year I get questions from somebody like, why are you betting this team? They're trying to lose, which I don't buy. Certainly players don't try to lose. That's for sure. And I don't think coaches ever try to lose. Now, management may try to lose by getting rid of players, but once those guys get on the field, teams don't try to lose. Now, I don't really think I don't think the Jet players are hoping that they get Trevor Lawrence, right? So that's not, the GM or whoever.
I don't think the coach or the GM wants it either, because they won't be here.
They won't be here to see it.
Yeah.
So, but you just see it with. I hear it so often. They're like, "Oh, that team's just tanking to get the." Miami was tanking until they weren't. Carolina was tanking until they weren't. Carolina's going to be the worst team of the year. Well, we'll figure it out. But the way it looks right now, yeah, the Jets are in contention here.
Carolina the worst team in the league.
No, but people were talking about it.
Are the worst teams in the league this year.
I heard people saying Carolina's going to tank so they can get the quarterback.
I heard that too, but
now Carolina's trying to make the playoffs. So, it's just you just don't know until it all plays out. But yeah, the Jets don't look very good. But I think this is a lot of points. This is out of the blue. Like, okay, Miami, great performance last week. I think a lot of that has to do with San Francisco. More, I don't want to say more than Miami, because Miami's played well. San Francisco has not played well.
San Francisco offensively has looked just really, really bad. Garoppolo in and out. Running backs kind of injured. But yeah, there's no excuse. I was shocked by
that was. I'm never shocked in the NFL when someone loses. I think the way they lost that game was the most shocking. That game was over before it even started. So yeah, okay, Miami's looked good. This is a big number. I'm going to be surprised if they cover this number. I'll just put it that way on this game. But I think Crowder is actually playable in this game.
Flacco's in, man. It's Flacco. It's not even Darnold. It's so brutal. I don't think I can get there with Jets players. I don't even know who the running back. Frank Gore never does well. Michael Pirine, no. So
I'm giving you Crowder. Crowder as my lightly owned, sub 5% owned player.
You know what my problem with Crowder is? You know what my real problem with Crowder is? It's just that he's not that cheap. He's 6,100. He's the same price as.
Yeah, no. He's not exactly.
I can't do it.
It's not a bargain basement.
I'm going to play Kenny Golladay.
Oh, well, Golladay. Listen, Golladay I love. I'm just giving you a pick of a guy who no one's gonna tell who I think is gonna have a good week.
He could, and again, I have him on my fantasy team and my season long. I'm gonna continue to start him. He's been great, but I'm gonna play Golladay.
Oh, Galladay's I love him. He's one of my favorite plays this week.
It's the same, and on the Miami side, Myles Gaskin.
Gaskin's in a great matchup.
Yes, I like Myles Gaskin here. Has been looking good. Devontae Parker every week, Mike Gesicki. I think all of the pieces on Miami look good. And if the Jets can make it competitive, even Fitzpatrick. But I will note, and this is important to note, in the power rankings, the Bible of what will happen on a week-to-week basis, guys. It does not, the Jets are not a team that you're supposed to necessarily target teams against. They have led to negative or poor fantasy output to opponents. So it's something to keep in mind. But beyond that, 264 yards, 120 yards rushing, the projections are pretty decent for Miami's overall offensive production. It's just that when you go to the main power rankings, the Jets are not that team that stands out as they're a scrub. They're a minus 37. It's not a I need to stay away 100%, can't mess with this. But a lot of that number is because their offense is so shitty that they just can't score enough to force the other team to score. So if we think the game is going to be close, if we're going to bet that to happen, then you can get a little more exposure. I think on the Miami side more than anything. I think on the Jet side, it's just disgusting with Joe Flacco in there, and I don't mind Miami defense either. By the way.
Oh, obviously Miami defense is in play here, but I think the Jet defense for cheap.
Oh, I didn't even show it on screen.
I haven't even looked at the prices. I would imagine the Jet defense is fairly cheap, but they'll be. I never mind targeting against a defense against Fitzpatrick because, like I said, he's as up and down as any quarterback in the league. So you could get a big game from him. Yeah, and we could easily get 3 picks from him. So
either side works. That's that scenario where the Jets actually come out, cover the spread, and maybe even win this game, ruin our hopes of Trevor Lawrence. Again, it's a It's a divisional matchup that does tend to play closer. Just in general, Gase used to coach Miami. Is a little bit of a revenge factor. Could be his last game coaching the Jets for all we know. So,
what about Fitzpatrick?
And Fitzpatrick used to play for the Jets. I don't think
he's played for everybody, though.
He played for everybody. You can't. There's no revenge. But I like it. And by the way, that will do it for the lightning round, and that will do it for the Sunday main slate of games, John. Really exciting. I like fewer games. I do better with fewer games. I'm going to just straight up tell you, I like the showdowns. I like the 2-game slates. I love the Thanksgiving 3-day slates. More games, more slates. I got to find myself a Chase Claypool. I don't like it. It never happens. So I like these smaller slates, and with fewer games that are exciting. I think we've got some pretty close to lock running back plays, certainly in cash. I think I know how I'm going to go in cash already, and it's Wednesday, so that's really unusual. And I think we're going to have a really fun week. Couple reminders: like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you check out No House Advantage. And if you sign up over there, use promo code ARMY. It gets you a deposit match of, I believe, $20. So you play those games over there for $20. You also get a free month of DFS Army for non-DFS Army members when you sign up for No House Advantage. Check out our free offer promotion page on dfsarmy.com to find out more about that. If you want John's picks this weekend, guys, and this is the most important thing I'm going to tell you. Not just John's picks, you get my MMA pick. If you're a sports bettor and you want to get tips from pros, guys who are tracked, guys who have a winning record, we checked it out. If you were just signed up 2 weeks ago and you bet $100 units, you'd be up about $1,700 in the last week and a half, over the past 2 weeks, I think it was, John. Just following the tips from the pros over at Sportsbet Army, guys. Sports gambling, it's a lot easier to do than DFS. There is a lower learning curve. You just pretty much follow the picks, and we'll teach you things like EV and probabilities and a lot of the stuff that goes into sports gambling that you don't know. I also want to mention our Mudnick, D-Mud, who is putting out prop bets for us, went like 10 for 11 the other night. There's a lot of action going on over at sportsbetarmy.com, so go check that out.
Yeah, I'm sweating out tennis from Cologne right now. So we've got a match going on right now. We're up. We won our tennis match earlier today, and we've got Harris right now up a set and up 4-3 right now in the second set. So
where else are you going to get awesome tennis picks from Cologne? That's how it goes in Sportsbet Army. So go check that out. Sign up as a Sportsbet Army VIP. You get a chat. You can ask John questions. You get in the chat with Ryan Fight on 2016, with Anthony P. He's got a full system. Everybody is model-based picks as well. We're not just a bunch of dudes picking what looks good. These are model-based picks, and they have track record of success. You got to check it out. I'm telling you, it's awesome. It's a great place to be in. It's a great place to learn how to bet on sports. If you don't know about how to get a sports book or how to bet, or if you're not in one of the states, just DM any of us and we can help you with that. Hit up John at Statsational on Twitter. He'll let you know where to go, what to do, how to get a couple free months of Sportsbet Army. I'd rather you put money on your sports book rather than pay us, the $49.99 a month. Put it in there. We'll get you a few free months, and we'll teach you hopefully how to be a profitable sports bettor. Have fun with it. And, watch games with a little rooting interest. So it's really awesome stuff. And, of course, get signed up as DFS Army as a VIP for all of my DFS content, John's tools, everything we got going on, the optimizer projection. We're adding something new, guys. Spoiler alert. We're adding a new tool. We've been adding tools like crazy because we level up beyond every other site in the industry. There's a reason why 6 DFS Army members took first place in the showdown on Monday night. John, is that normal?
That's
6
not normal.
members?
No,
is that normal for you?
No, I mean, let me tell you, just in all my sports, I've gotten so much better since joining you guys. Just because, no matter how much you think you don't know everything, and you don't have all the time in the day to do the research that all these guys are doing.
John's one of the top pros in the world. For him to say that, it means a lot. And I just we've been adding tools like crazy because you have to do that to maintain the edge, and we have to do that because in DFS Army we don't have the distinctions of having like media personalities or a bunch of fucking, names that you've heard of, fantasy football guys.
Let me tell you this. So when you watch the Food Channel, Are those the best chefs in the world?
No,
Not typically.
Right.
They're just very good at doing a cooking show, but your best chefs in the world are the best chefs in the world. Like
they're in the kitchen cooking.
Yeah, they're not the ones who are doing the shows on TV. So that's what I like about the guys over in the DFS. There's so many really bright guys putting out really good information. So like I said, I've learned myself just in football, just listening to guys like Burns and
let me tell you what's coming. This tool, we're calling it the Research Lab. It's going to take what was the Research Station concept and take it to the next level. A full lab. You click on players. You get background information. Multiple years. Our database we've been working on this for so long. So the database is spectacular. We actually partnered with someone that brought us a new technology that we never heard of before. We just demoed it, and it is coming very, very soon. The Research Lab is going to be for all sports. It's going to blow your fucking minds. It's going to level up DFS Army tools and content beyond all other sites. So, and of course, we're for anybody who's not subscribed, we're half the price. Like, part of the thing that I did with DFS Army is we priced it to make it affordable to average players. We have the theme turning average Joes to DFS pros, competing on a level playing field. And we've stuck with that. As many as there are lots of pros in here, and trust me, there are. I know who subscribes, and the pros, they subscribe, but they probably subscribe to all sites, not taking credit. But we priced our site for average Joes to be able to afford it. It's half the price of other sites that do half the content that we do. So I'm not going to name those other sites, but I'm telling you, we are half the price of all those other sites for a reason. Because I want to be affordable. I don't want to just be a site for people who afford $89.99 a month for sport. That's a lot of money. I get it, and that's why we keep our subscriptions where they are. Again, use these promo codes that we have on VIP for now until we change it, which will be changing very soon. But for now, you're still getting VIP covering all sports, everything we do, content, chat, everything on the DFS side. It comes out to $39.99 after the promo code. You got to do that. Promo code Geek. Get signed up now, because we're also switching to a new model that, while it will reduce the cost of individual sports, the combination of all sports together is going to go up a little bit. And that's because everybody's asking us to do individual sports. So I'm happy to do it as well. Our MMA team, our NASCAR team, our niche sports, our PGA team, they're all really spectacular and I think best in the industry. So, we're going to have individual subs for people who just want those. Of course, our NFL team fucking kicks ass, takes names. We'll have an individual sub for that as well. So lots of good things coming. Sorry to bore you with all of the promotional, but needed to mention that. And be on the lookout for the DFS Army Research Lab, set to launch within the next week. It's going to blow your fucking minds. I'll do a demo. And good luck this week, week 3. We'll be back on Friday with the DFS Army Wolfpack, where a team of DFS Army pros will get together as a roundtable, go over some tournament approaches for the slate. And as always, I'll be back, DFS Army VIPs only, for the Players Club Saturday podcast, where we bring it all together. We'll talk cash games. We'll talk handcrafted 3-max type lineups, and we will really get down to all the research of the week, put it all together, and get deep into the DFS plays that help you guys smash on Sunday. For John, Statsational, Alessia, and myself, Kevin Allen, good luck this week, everybody. Thanks for joining us.